Hey everyone, I know this topic isn't new, but what's happening in the Bay Area in 2026 is honestly kind of a shock. You know, we've heard so many promises, so many campaigns, but what's the real story behind those tiny home sites shutting down, or the new enforcement laws? You're standing in the heart of Silicon Valley, where billions of dollars flow like water every second, but just turn around and you'll see endless rows of tents, tiny and lost beneath the shadows of the skyscrapers.
Drugs can be a contributing factor. It could be a lot of things. It could be mental illness, it could be loss of work, it could be loss of spouse, it could be loss of a job. And homelessness has a vast variety of factors. There's not just one answer to that question. It's like there's not one solution, there's not one big fix-all thing.
What do you think $6.4 billion can buy? A private island? A tech empire? Or the disappearance of thousands of tents from the sidewalks? So what's really going on here? Why is one of the richest places on the planet struggling with a crisis called homelessness this severe? From aggressive cleanup policies to sky-high housing costs, mental health challenges, and even the massive impact of fentanyl, all of it is intertwined.
Even said this park is for citizens.
And we're not citizens. We're just riffraff. We're non-productive. We're drug addicts. We're alcoholics. We're perverts. But just like you and everyone else, I can't say it enough, but we are, and we just don't have a structure over our head.
But what would you say if I told you that even though the number of tents is going down, the real problem isn't over? In Oakland, the number of people experiencing homelessness is actually rising. In San Jose, the total remains at record high levels, and the flow of people falling into this situation just keeps coming.
And then you come and you sweep people's park and you spend over $7 million and running to sweep them people when you could have housed them people for $2 million.
So what's really happening on the ground? Are the government's efforts actually helping people, or just moving the problem from one place to another? I'm going to walk through this step by step so we can break it down more clearly together. Are you ready? Shall we go ahead and dive in? Straight up, right now, in early 2026, the Bay Area is still grinding it out as one of the top 3 homelessness hotspots in the entire United States, with roughly 28,200 people surviving on the streets, in cars, or under whatever cover they can find. As of early 2026, California is dealing with roughly 187,000 people without stable housing, and the Bay Area sits right at the center of that pressure zone.
The housing program, they didn't care. They just saw that I wasn't doing something right, so I got faithfully ejected from a program that I still needed help with, and that plunged me back into homelessness again.
Santa Clara County and San Jose, the 2025 pit count delivered a gut punch: 10,711 people experiencing homelessness countywide, an 8.2% jump from 2 years earlier. San Jose alone sits at 6,503, mostly because they lost their job or couldn't keep up with rent. So while the city is adding shelter beds like crazy, the inflow is still outrunning the exits. Does that sound like a system that's actually winning, or one that's just treading water harder every year? Oakland and the rest of Alameda County, this one hits different. Oakland's homeless population climbed another 9% to 5,485 people, with unsheltered numbers pushing close to 3,659. That means 2 out of every 3 are still exposed on the streets, in cars, or under tarps. Meanwhile, the broader county saw a slight dip, but Oakland is clearly carrying the heaviest load and growing faster than the region. Mayor Barbara Lee just rolled out a bold plan to cut homelessness by 50% in 5 years. It'll cost over $1 billion. Ambitious? Absolutely. Realistic on these current streets? That's the fight everyone's watching. Let's be blunt, this region isn't just dealing with homelessness, it's dealing with unsheltered survival at scale. In Oakland, for example, a majority are living outside. No insulation, no stability, constant exposure. That changes everything. Because once you're on the street here, you're not just without housing, you're in a continuous survival loop. Food, safety, sleep, repeat, no buffer. And here's a question most officials won't answer directly. If the system is working, why are so many people still outside? Because even with shelters and programs in place, capacity doesn't match inflow. People are still falling into homelessness faster than the system can pull them out. That's not speculation, that's throughput failure. Bottom line, San Francisco is clearing the visible mess faster than anyone expected. San Jose is bulking up interim shelter but bleeding new cases, and Oakland is still taking on water. The numbers don't lie, some blocks look cleaner, but the grind on the ground remains damn tough and unforgiving. Now let's cut straight to the forces that are really beating on the streets. First, the that won't let up, fentanyl. In San Francisco, overdose deaths are still ripping through the unsheltered population at a brutal pace. Even with a 23% drop from the 2023 peak, hundreds are still lost every year, many of them right on the sidewalks in the Tenderloin and Soma, often with no roof overhead. On these blocks, one bad batch or one cold night can end everything fast. The scary part? A lot of folks on the ground say the visible tent cleanup is happening while the deadly supply keeps flowing strong. So are we actually saving lives or just making the crisis harder to see? On top of that, sky-high housing costs and sudden job loss keep feeding fresh bodies into the system every single month. Prevention programs are working hard, cutting risk by 40 to 78% in some spots, but they're still not enough to stop the flood. For every person who gets pulled into housing, 3 more slide back out onto the pavement. The old way of handling homelessness in the Bay Area is over. Now, it's all about new, strict laws. The Supreme Court recently gave cities the power to clear out tents even if there aren't enough shelter beds available. The city is choosing order over pity, and it's happening fast. Basically, police now have the green light to move people off the sidewalks every single day. No more warnings, just action. Take San Francisco, for example. The new mayor is opening what they call locked beds. These are rooms for people with mental health or drug issues. But here is the catch. They are not allowed to leave. It is forced treatment. You either take the help provided or you face the law. There is no middle ground anymore. On top of that, the city is pushing a bus ticket program. They are paying for people to leave the state and go back to their families. They call it a reunion, but it feels more like they are just pushing the problem to someone else's backyard, right? Even San Jose is getting tough. They're actually planning to charge people a small fee to stay in emergency shelters. If you are broke and have nothing, how are you supposed to pay for a bed? It feels cold, but the city says they need the money to keep the lights on. What you think? Is this tough love the only way to get our streets back, or are we just punishing people for being poor? The Bay Area is no longer a safe haven. It has become a place of strict rules and hard consequences. Oakland's tiny home program has officially hit a dead end. Forget the fancy promises. The reality on the street is a staggering failure. Take the Peralta cabins in West Oakland. They were supposed to be a fresh start, but now they are just locked gates and empty boxes. Millions of tax dollars were spent, yet the people who lived there are right back on the cold asphalt. It is a total waste of money and life. Furthermore, the anger is boiling over at places like Mandela House. Residents feel cheated, claiming the city promised real homes but delivered nothing but excuses. Is the city actually helping, or is this just a massive scam to hide the problem? Even though the state sends huge checks to Oakland, the city claims they are broke. It simply doesn't add up. You know, it feels like the system is just wasting money while the poor continue to suffer. The trust is gone. People aren't just losing their homes, they are losing their faith in a government that can't even manage a few small cabins. What do you think? Is this an honest mistake, or is the city just giving up on its own people? Bottom line, the streets are getting hit from every angle, a lethal drug supply that keeps killing, an endless inflow of new cases, and now a federal money fight that could undo years of progress overnight. The numbers look cleaner in some neighborhoods, but the physical grind underneath stays raw and unforgiving.
I told him to go get his turkey.
So what are the cities actually throwing at this fight right now? In San Francisco, Mayor Daniel Lurie is pushing hard with a no-nonsense breaking the cycle approach. They've consolidated street outreach teams, opened hundreds of new treatment-focused beds, and just supercharged the Journey Home program, now running 247 with real follow-up support to help people reconnect with family outside the city. They're also reforming contracts and shifting some big money towards shelter and transitional housing instead of endless permanent supportive units. The results? Visible encampments are way down and shelter placements are up sharply. But critics are already asking the tough question, are we just moving people around or truly breaking the cycle on these streets? Over in Oakland, Mayor Barbara Lee just dropped a bold 5-year strategic action plan aiming to slash unsheltered homelessness by 50% by 2031. The plan leans heavy on prevention, better interim housing, and getting people into permanent spots faster. It sounds aggressive on paper, but it needs hundreds of millions in new funding that the city doesn't fully have yet. Some locals love the prevention-first shift, while others say without tougher enforcement on encampments and RVs, it's just another expensive wish list that won't clear the sidewalks fast enough. Across the Bay Area, the big state-level muscle is still Proposition 1. Governor Newsom's behavioral health bond is running ahead of schedule, pumping billions into new treatment beds, outpatient slots, and supportive housing projects. San Francisco alone just landed nearly $40 million in fresh state dollars to keep shelters running and build new wellness centers with serious treatment capacity. Prevention programs are also showing strong numbers. cutting the risk of someone hitting the streets by 40 to 78% in targeted areas. Here's the raw truth from the ground. These efforts are finally mixing shelter, treatment, and accountability instead of just handing out housing first with no strings. That shift feels overdue to a lot of people who walk these blocks every day. Yet, with federal funding still shaky and inflow still outpacing exits, many insiders wonder if these local and state pushes can move the needle faster than the streets keep pulling new people in. The policies are getting sharper and more coordinated than before, but whether they're tough enough to match the brutal daily grind out here remains the real test. So here's the hard truth from the streets right now. The biggest challenge hasn't changed. Inflow is still crushing the system. For every one person who gets housed or into treatment, 3 more are sliding onto the pavement every single month. Federal funding cuts are hanging over everything like a dark cloud. If Washington really pulls back hundreds of millions in permanent housing money, a lot of the recent gains could disappear fast and put thousands back on the cold sidewalks. On top of that, fentanyl keeps doing its deadly work, and too many people are still sleeping rough with zero protection against the weather or the next bad batch. But here's the part that sparks real debate. Visible homelessness in San Francisco has dropped hard, yet some insiders argue the city is just sweeping the problem under the rug instead of solving the root causes. Others say the tougher enforcement and treatment-first approach is exactly what was missing for years. The question everyone on the ground is asking is simple. Are we finally turning the corner or just moving tents out of camera view? Looking ahead to the rest of 2026 and beyond, the outlook is tough but not hopeless. If California keeps pushing Prop 1 money into treatment beds and prevention programs actually scale up, the Bay Area could keep bending the curve downward. However, if federal cuts hit deep and local budgets stay tight, we could easily see a brutal rebound with more people exposed on the streets than ever. Bottom line from someone watching these blocks every day, the fight is real, the numbers are still ugly underneath the cleaner sidewalks, and the next 12-18 months will decide whether this is real, lasting progress, or just another temporary dip in a very long, grinding battle. The streets don't lie, and right now they're still testing every policy, every hole, and every plan thrown at them. This isn't a problem that's fading, it's a system that's stabilizing at a high-risk level. And that should concern you, because when a crisis stops spiking and starts plateauing, it doesn't mean it's solved, it means it's becoming permanent. Right now, the Bay Area is running 2 parallel strategies: short-term containment and long-term uncertainty. On one side, you've got more shelter beds, more tiny home units, faster response. On the other, you still have extreme housing costs, limited supply, and a steady inflow of people slipping through the cracks. So even as tents disappear from certain blocks, the pressure doesn't drop, it shifts. Here's the uncomfortable question. Are we solving homelessness or just managing its visibility? Because if people are moving from sidewalks into temporary units without a clear path forward, then the system isn't resolving anything, it's buffering, and buffers eventually overflow. Now, there are signals of change. Prevention programs, direct cash support, rental assistance are starting to show promise. They're cheaper, faster, and in many cases, more effective at stopping the fall before it happens. But scaling that's a different battle entirely. Funding, coordination, political will, it all has to line up. So where does that leave us? In a transition phase. Not failure, not success, something in between. And here's the second question you should be asking. If billions have already been spent, what exactly are we optimizing for, outcomes or optics? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about housing. It's about whether the system can actually keep people from falling and pull them back once they do. Right now, the answer is still incomplete. Thank you all for sticking with me through this deep dive into the reality of the Bay Area in 2026. This isn't an easy topic to digest, but it's a story that needs to be told. We're looking at a region with more wealth than almost anywhere on Earth, yet we're still witnessing a humanitarian crisis that refuses to fade. From the empty tiny home sites in Oakland to the new forced treatment laws in San Francisco, the landscape is shifting fast. But as we've seen, clearing a sidewalk isn't the same thing as solving a soul struggle. It leads us to a heavy question. Are these new aggressive policies actually helping people rebuild their lives, or are we just spending billions to push the problem out of sight and into someone else's backyard? I want to hear from you. Do you think this tough love approach is the wake-up call the city needs to reclaim its streets, or is it a failure of compassion for those with nowhere left to go? Drop a comment below and let's get a conversation started. I read every single one of them. If you found this breakdown insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you these boots on the ground reports. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.